This is the most difficult thing that you will do in decluttering your home. But if you can do some of it, then you can do all of it and completely change the dynamics of your home and the rest of your life too. Well, hello friend, I'm Mary Beth with At What Cost, where simple living and deep faith go hand in hand. Now, do you want the good news or do you want the bad news? Well, I guess it's a video, so you don't really get to choose. I'll choose for you. Let's start with the bad news. So the bad news is, this is going to be really hard. The good news is, you were made to do hard things. You just weren't made to do them by yourself. You were made to do these things in relationship with God. So that being said, getting started in decluttering or simplifying your home or going on this journey of minimalism is probably the hardest thing that you'll have to do throughout this process. Regardless of how far you want to take it or how much stuff you have, you could be one magazine away from a TLC show or just a few extra things here and there that you're having trouble parting with. In both scenarios, you're facing the same issue of getting started. Are the tasks different? Will they require different levels of physical energy, mental energy, or resources? Of course. But ultimately, everyone has to take the first step, and it's a whole lot more than just taking things out of our homes. Taking things out of our house is easy. We actually do it every day. Even today, I would almost 100% guarantee that you took something out of your house and you don't even care that it's gone. In fact, you're probably happy that it's gone. And you don't have to take my word for it. Go look in the trash can. Pause the video, go look, I'll wait. There are things that we do not keep. They no longer serve us. We don't value them. They are no longer good. You get where I'm going with this, right? Now, replace the easy stuff with some of the things that you have laying around. This is why taking the first step can be so hard. Now, before you get all up in arms about me comparing grandma's teacups to trash, that's not at all what I'm saying here. Hear me out. And if you're offended by this already, keep listening because you're probably one of the ones who needs to hear it. I know I certainly was. As Christians, often the issues around having too much stuff go much deeper than we're usually willing to admit or realize. And Melissa Kruger lays this out so well in her book, The Envy of Eve. Now, this book was pivotal in my journey toward minimalism, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in just a little bit. But listen to what she says about our relationship with stuff. Spoiler alert, we're talking about coveting, so just hang in there. Our inability to fight well and conquer this sin is related to our attempt to treat only the outer symptoms of what is a much deeper inner problem. She goes on to say that coveting does not result because we don't have something. We covet because we fail to believe something, which means we can't just simply treat the surface level stuff like getting things out of our home. Even if we did completely rid our home of clutter, it inevitably would just continue to pile up again if we don't treat that underlying issue with having too much stuff. And organizing it or reducing it is just not enough. We still would wind up with things piled up everywhere, including all of the anxiety and overwhelm and all of the reasons that you likely clicked on this video. Yeah, all of that stuff. Taking the first step is the hardest because it means that we have to face some difficult, deeply ingrained thought patterns and behaviors. Let me explain how this happened for me. A couple of years ago, I was teaching a women's Bible study and we were going through this book, The Envy of Eve, which is, like I mentioned, all about coveting. While that was happening, we were also going through the book of Leviticus in our Sunday school class, which meant there were two different messages that were coming through loud and clear. The first was that there should be nothing that I want more than the Lord. There is nothing I need more than the Lord, and there is nothing that will save me or my home or my family more than the Lord. The second was that all that it required of Old Testament families in order to be forgiven for sins and made right with God. This was a big deal. Caring for these animals that would be part of this process was an all-consuming endeavor for the entire family. Nothing was more important than maintaining their possessions in a way that was fitting for the Lord. This could not be compromised. Now, because of Christ's work on the cross, we don't have to engage in that same process for the forgiveness of sins and to be made right with God, which means now caring for our things looks a little different. Or does it? A couple of weeks ago, I sat down with Dawn from The Minimal Mom, and she said something that reminded me of this whole collision of offering and coveting. She talked about wanting to offer up anything that was standing between her and the Lord. So this is where the teacups come into play. Or the extra storage containers, the extra clothes, the toys, I mean, whatever it is, or maybe all of it. Our role as believers when it comes to our stuff is to steward it in such a way that we point others back to Christ. 2 years ago, before all of this began, I had a relationship with Jesus. I hosted people in our home. I was active in our church, but there was always this underlying anxiety that when people would come over, they would somehow open the wrong door looking for the restroom, and all of my disaster of a guest bedroom would be exposed, or they would see that closet that everything would inevitably fall out of if you opened the door and didn't, brace it. And even if they had one in their own home, which, I mean, come on, it's pretty likely that they did, I still felt this level of anxiety, and I didn't feel like I could fully enjoy all of those things. I knew that if they knew, then they would think a lot less of me. Everything I did took 10 times longer because I could never find anything. The kids had stuff they needed for character day or whatever the 80 millionth theme day of the year was. And I couldn't find any of the things that I needed despite being super crafty and able to actually do those things. I always felt stressed out, and I was always at the last minute and frustrated because things were always such a mess. And when I went to clean it up, everything felt special. How could I get rid of those extra dishes? What if we ended up needing them? I mean, we hosted people pretty frequently. We needed extra dishes, right? Or maybe I could save those clothes from a few years ago and maybe get back into them. Or what if I could decorate my whole house like a Pinterest board? Then people would actually like me for me, right? I wouldn't just be putting on a show. That just wasn't the truth. And that's why I think these first steps are the hardest to take. It means really confronting and coming clean about our relationship with our stuff. And maybe this is hard to hear. It certainly was for me. There were a lot of very self-reflective moments about why I was hanging on to some of the things I was hanging on to. And if you had asked me 2 years ago if there was anything that could come between me and the Lord, I would have told you absolutely not. There is nothing that could stand between us, but the fact remained that it pretty much did every day. All of the extra stuff took time and attention. I would often feel too overwhelmed to pray or read my Bible. And if I'm really honest, even going to church on Sunday mornings felt like a hassle, getting everybody ready, getting myself ready, making sure that everybody had all of the things that they needed was stressful. And frequently, by the time I got to church, I felt like the next hour was one long exhale followed by 30 minutes of anxiety over what we were going to actually do for dinner afterwards and for the rest of the week for that matter. I was there, I was involved, I was learning, but I was distracted. But if you can adjust your view on your relationship with your stuff, you can declutter the whole rest of your home. I reduced down the number of outfits my kids had for church because I didn't want to keep stressing out about what to wear and where those clothes were. I didn't want to keep losing out on Bible study time because my time was so consumed with cleaning the kitchen so I could feel settled enough to actually devote time to study. I simplified our home because I wanted to pray with thanksgiving and praise instead of just pleading for things to get better. I had to let go of a lot of difficult stuff, like really difficult stuff. But ultimately, I have seen the benefits again and again of having a simplified home. Can you see how this mind shift could dramatically change the way that you declutter and, of course, could dramatically change the rest of your home? How different could your home feel if we started offering up some of these things to the Lord that are standing in the way? We will be taking a deep dive into this book, The Envy of Eve, over in our Bible study group. So be sure to check out the link right there in the description for the join button, or if you have the join button, go ahead and click it so that you can see all of the perks that you can access in our Bible study group. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.